Hello, welcome to the channel. Today is Saturday, March 5th, 2022, which makes this week the week 9 Create Brilliance 2022 weekly update with your hostess, Jennifer Vanderbeek of scrapsoflife.com. Hi, how are ya? So I just want to jump right in because yay, I finally get to share all of what I've been working on for the last few weeks, like hardcore and even longer before that. So I'm going to flip over to a different screen setup so that you can see. Ta-da! Okay, so this doesn't look like a lot right now. So I've been working on the FLAUNT 2022 create or unlock your happy space, your happy place, um, diorama, vignette, box, what have you. And so I've taken lots of photos and videos over the course and I want to show them to you. So what we've got here, this is how the central figure started. It looks pretty anemic, doesn't it? I wanted a humanoid figure, but not something that necessarily looked like me. It was, while this is based on my happy place, which is all things creative and inspiring, I wanted something more neutral, not something with my face on it necessarily. So I started by just pulling out different types of wire and pieces of old jewelry that I'd made, like some Viking chain weaving and stuff, and then built it up with different strengths or gauges of wire. I added some yarn, some broken jewelry pieces, just various things I had around. And I believe you saw this because I think I held it up in one of the previous streams before I confirmed that, yeah, we're not supposed to be sharing any sneak peeks. One of the other things we were challenged to do was include keys because the sponsor for our category was Key South, which is a real estate company here in town. And oh, excuse me, I'm apparently going to poke, and we don't want that. That would not be conducive. So anyway, that was the major key that I incorporated, but there will be 4 other keys hidden through, well, hidden, put throughout the rest of the box. So once I had the figure, I needed something for her to sit on. I needed a platform for her because this was a 16 by 16 by 12 um, pine box, and I wanted her to be, literally front and center, actually center and center. So I needed something to elevate her. And the pose I had picked was kind of like, kind of meditative. One person, when they looked at it, they're like, oh, that's like her finding her nirvana. Exactly. And then holding up the key and everything. So I thought pillows would be appropriate. So I grabbed some fabrics from my stash. And then I had the 2 pillows, but I was like, that's not enough height. So then I wrapped a piece of foam in another piece of fabric and stitched it closed. And that became the central figure that everything else was kind of gonna revolve around. Oh, I have some videos in here too. So the next thing to do was deal with this big white box. And so I covered it like I normally would on any project in pattern tissue, just to kind of give a bit of texture and interest and get rid of the whole blank white page syndrome. And then I could start like laying things out. The powers that be decided that lights would be a really good thing on the inside. So I was able to pick up my light ahead of time and fix it into place. Um, and I knew I had to submit a sketch of what I thought I was going to do ahead of time. So I was working from that. I dialed back a couple of things, a couple of facets of the project just because I thought it would be end up to being too cluttered in the end, and I'm totally okay with that because these things evolve over time. But I have, so we've got her in the center so I can figure out kind of where things sit. I knew I wanted like a bookcase filled with not just books, but all sorts of creative things. I was basically going through all of my miniatures and all of the things I'd set aside to use for, dollhouse projects or other, small diorama and ephemera and everything like that, and just pulling things and starting to figure out where I wanted them. I knew I wanted one wall, was going to be, the Arizona desert, which I find surprisingly enough for me, I did not think I was gonna become so attached to the Arizona desert, but I am. I think it's beautiful and inspiring and, I just and I get to the point where I miss it and, along with my partner out there. But I have, so I've got, I know that I'm gonna make a saguaro cactus out of cardboard and some other things. I know I wanted an easel in one corner, and I decided rather than trying to find the correct scale of easel, I was just going to make one. And again, rather than using anything else, I'm like, I've got these paintbrushes that are basically ruined. They were used and not cleaned and but I keep them because I'm me and I don't throw things away. And so I was able to reuse these, trashed uh paintbrushes to create an easel in this diorama, and that was like one of many favorite touches. And then I've got some iron grading or fencing over here because I knew I was going to create a garden wall, because that was the other thing that's so inspiring is being out in nature, and having my garden the past couple of years has just been like super huge. So the next thing was I needed to start painting the background. So I have the Arizona wall, with the mountains in the distance. I have kind of like your general like rolling hills of the south, the Red Hills region kind of thing. And I tried to make it more of like twilight, dusk. And then I've got the background for what will become the garden wall. And those were, just got those painted so that I could start really placing and figuring things out. I tell you what, I was so nervous about placing things in their final position and like gluing them in place. Um for 2 reasons. One, was that, we're gonna rotate this so it's right. Here's some of the cactus, the saguaro cactus, like your typical big armed cactus. And then, these are the pieces, over here for the prickly pear cactus, because I love prickly pear flavored items. I love it, like the prickly pear taffy. I always have to have some of that, and there's even like prickly pear liqueur and my favorite. It's one of my favorite flavors these days. Um, so yeah, I knew I was going to be doing that, and I've got some embroidery thread because I added some details to the cardboard and paint. Um, And then, here's where I had to cut so many little pieces of foam board because I knew I needed a lot of books for the bookcases, even though I'd have other things there. And I also was using something that was basically, I don't know, candles might have come in this little tan box, or maybe washi tape or something. I don't know. I kept it because I knew it would be a good structure to build off of, and so I cut some foam core shelves, and then I'd cover them and everything. But one of the reasons why I was nervous putting things down, these are the what would eventually become the little prickly pear flowers. So I had to kind of create them I decided to create them from yarn, and I've super glued them so that they don't unravel on me. And then this is my rock formation for the Arizona wall. This is what I was nervous about because, and I'll pause here so that I can finish what I keep trying to say. Not only was I afraid of putting something down and having it permanently affixed, because, once it's affixed, taking it out would destroy other things around it. The other thing was I knew we were doing load in at one location, and then in the next day or 2, the houses that everything was contained in, yeah, those were then going to be moved to their display spot. And so here you have these, like, taller than me houses that are made to look like Monopoly houses with 10 of these 16 by 16 by 12 dioramas in them, and they're gonna be moved. That means, so they're gonna have to, like, I don't know, forklift them or crane, or I don't know how they moved them. I wasn't there. But we knew everything had to be secure because they were gonna get jostled around. So, it wasn't just building a diorama and you glue things in place and you know it's going to be handled with care. Oh, no, 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 no. These things were going, I mean, by the end, I did like a 1 foot off the ground drop test, and oh, the anxiety that it caused, but everything stayed. So, lots of super glue, lots of construction adhesive, but I was really worried. But this piece in particular, this rock formation, which I loved. It's air dry clay, just the Crayola air dry clay and terracotta. Um, yeah, it I love it to pieces. But I was so worried that it wasn't going to dry, that it wasn't gonna dry in time, that it was gonna fall off the wall. I was so worried. What happened ended up happening was the top section dried very fast because it was thinner. And I also noticed that I had it on the cardboard as like a guide, but it was starting to curl as it dried, and I'm like, "Oh, no, this is not good. This is not good." So I ended up, breaking it into sections, like 4 different sections, so that it could dry a little faster, more, even that little bit of extra surface area, and so that I could flatten the pieces out a little bit, and because I can always, I thought, I can always assemble them on the wall, so rather than being one curved piece, I would have, sections. It worked really well. Thank goodness. Okay, here's the saguaro cactus again. You see where I used the embroidery thread to create like the spines, the cactus spines. I am very proud of myself for coming up with that. And then here's ignore the messiness of my office. I don't think there's anything untoward showing. Um, but yeah, this is the prickly pear once I'd finally kind of worked the little cactus fruits in there. All right. At one point, I'd been working so long and so much and staring at everything, I started to get a wee bit punchy. And I decided, I had the thought, and then it became of course I'm gonna do that. The thought to include this little this little mini wine bottle with a little teacup on the top in amongst the various creative supplies. It happened because I knew I had like a little coffee tumbler. That's what I knew I had somewhere, and I was trying to find it, and I came across the wine bottle first, and I just, like I said, I was getting a little punchy at that point. It was late at night or early in the morning, depending on how you look at time. Um, this I finally started working too on the uh garden wall. I was concentrating on the Arizona wall because I knew it there were the pieces were bigger and therefore they had to be right, whereas the garden wall I knew was going to be made up a lot of smaller things, but I was also still not sure how I was going to keep everything in place. Yeah, I was like, I don't know." So, but I'd had this little pegboard piece that actually came from a little me um set up for Claire's, like the Claire stores in the mall, and yeah, I used some pieces from that, but I painted it brown so it was looking more like wood. I didn't spend a lot of time like wood graining it, but and then I had purchased some garden fixtures, just had those on there, and that became like a little fixture on that side. And then it became time to construct the garden pieces, the actual foliage. And I had a lot of like faux flowers and faux foliage, and even like the grapes that I'm kind of sort of using as like eggplants or bell peppers. You can make up your mind what they are. But of course, if you just stick them on the wall or in a piece of foam as they are, they're going to look like what they are, that just fake foliage. So I knew that to be correct, to be anywhere close to what I wanted, I needed to take them apart and reassemble them all in bits and pieces. And so that's what I was doing here. Now, the back wall with the bookcases and the ephemera and all the bits and pieces, that I wasn't as worried about. It did take time to cover all the little foam core pieces with um scrapbook paper to make the books or journals or sketchbooks, whatever you want to. I mean, they're totally up for interpretation. Um and I've got like yarn, and I made some like little knitting needles that are sitting in a little Ryakuma coffee mug. And you can see right back here next to the the paint bottles of paint that I constructed. There's the, the and like the little rolls of paper I thought I was going to use to make the paint bottles. I actually ended up using wooden dowels instead, and washi tape for the labels. So I use those as like just rolls of paper, like you would like rolls of canvas or something. Here's that coffee over here, on this other bookcase is the coffee tumbler, the travel tumbler that I was looking for. And I've got little bits and pieces of all sorts of stuff scattered about. I found a little printable of a Monopoly game because, again, it's Let's Play, and it was themed around Monopoly and the release of Tomopoly, which is the Thomasville Center for the Arts version of Monopoly. And of course, I had to include a monkey. There's actually a little Frank monkey pin on the bookcase, and there's just all sorts of things. There's another one of the keys. I ended up painting that. I would paint that to kind of blend in to the bookcase a little bit, which I'd covered in like, white brick paper. Oh, here we go. So here we're seeing like after I finally got up the guts to glue everything down and just, say a prayer that it was all gonna stay. Again, so much super glue, so much construction adhesive. See like a little painting that I'd started there. Um, and then there's the flowers. I ended up using a piece of foam that I painted and then helped stick things down. There's also like staple gunned stuff to the wall. I painted the housing of the light to kind of blend in a little bit better. And then here's some close-ups. So this is the close-up of the back wall. Now, granted, my central figure was going to be in front of all of this, but I did make sure she was moved up enough that you could, if you look to the sides, you can see all the little details, all the little bits and pieces. See, there's that painted key. There's another key on top of the easel. There's another key painted green hidden here in the grass. And again, it was just, putting more and more little pieces of greenery and stuff to try and create this garden wall. And then here is what it looks like without my working light, which is an odd light. Without that on, here's what it would look like when it's in its housing with the light above on. And you can see that, the central figure, she's in place, but you can still see behind there. And then here it is when it was on display. They turned on the lights, which were remote controlled. I thought that was cool. um and yeah, and here it is, and I took a little selfie with my setup. I think that's the last picture. All right, so let's go back here. Yay, full screen me. I hope you enjoyed seeing that. I'm so happy to be able to share it. I will be putting up bits and pieces of that on my socials at Scraps of Life, um, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook if we're Facebook friends, that sort of thing. So I'll be putting up some stuff about that. Um, yeah, but that has been where my head is at for a couple weeks now. And I love this project. I do. I love how this turned out. If somebody chooses, because all, you could mark it as not for sale, but I chose to put mine up for sale. So if somebody buys it, don't get me wrong, I'll be over the moon, and that somebody wanted to own something that I've created. That's fabulous. Just like I think any of the other um creators in there was like, oh, I don't even know, 100 and some artists, because there was like a total of 9 different categories if you included, like, the school murals, and there were a lot. There's a lot of people involved in this, and so I think that any artist who creates something and then makes it available for people, and people somebody says, "Yes, I'm willing to pay that for your work," you're flattered and you're gratified, and so but if no one does, I certainly will not be upset to bring it back home and put it somewhere here on in the house on display, because I am really freaking proud of everything I did, and it's some of my best work to date. With the miniatures, with just with everything. Is it perfect? Gosh, no. No, I mean, I could point out things that I could have done better, but that's not the point. As I said, perfection is not the goal. Um But I was so proud of what I did, and each category had a $500 grand prize, and that was the only winner that was announced for each, category, and I thought I really had a shot. I really did. I was confident enough in my work, which, if you're a creator of any type, or, I mean, just in any kind of things we do, we think, "Oh gosh, did I do that?" We are our own worst critics. But, yeah, ah, I was so happy with how things came together, and so happy with what I'd done, that I really believed I had a shot at the grand prize for my category. I didn't win, but the person who did win, their piece was phenomenal. I knew it the moment I said, it's like, "Okay, if I'm not announced as the winner, this is gonna be the winner." So it's not like I was shocked, but Imposter syndrome kicked in heavy later that night. After we'd gotten home from the opening, after we had dinner and everything, imposter syndrome walked in and kicked my ass. The refrain of not good enough, it wasn't good enough to win. And I look at that, and I look at that breakdown I had, and it's just like, wow, I keep going back to this. I keep getting hung up by the same well of not good enough, of the imposter syndrome, of just, everything that feeds into that sense of self-worth that I've talked on in these updates before, about finding glimpses of that self-worth, and realizing that, wow, that's what I've been missing for so much of my life. But it's not an impermeable barrier. It is not a brick wall. There are gaps. There are a lot of gaps. In fact, there's probably more gap than wall at this point. But that sense of self-worth that insulates us from things like imposter syndrome and so forth. That that I'm still working on. Um so yeah, I broke, and I broke hard, and I know that a lot of it has to do with the stress that I've put on myself to do what I'm doing right now. It's not, on the one hand, having the luxury, and it truly is a luxury, having the luxury of time to write and create art, as my day-to-day activity, super huge. But there's also there's pressure to produce, to bring money in, to yeah, so I'm still working on that. Still working on that. Um I'm laughing, but that's kind of like the nervous ha 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 laugh, but you guys know me. You know. But at the same time, um I realized something, that even though I even, even when I was feeling like shit and all these negative thoughts and stuff were running through my head. Um, I knew it wasn't permanent. I knew I'd get past it. I knew I could recognize at least that even though that's what I was feeling, that was not the reality of the situation. And I just needed to give myself some space to get through those feelings and then, and here I am, able to look at it much more honestly and regain those feelings of pride in what I was able to accomplish. Um so it was a moment. It was a moment. But what I want to point out, and this is our brilliance is moment. Um Brilliance is breaking. We think about a diamond or any kind of gemstone that when it's pulled out of the earth, it's not like we saw in, like, in Snow White, where the dwarves are mining for precious gems and they're already cut and beautiful and shiny. Not how they come out of the ground. They come out of the ground in a hunk, maybe a smaller hunk, but they come out of the ground in a hunk. They've got debris around them that has to be cleaned off. There's occlusions, they're not perfect. They're not ideal yet. Actually, the ideal didn't require perfect maybe, but ideal did not require the air quotes. They're not to their ideal form. They're not showing their brilliance yet. It's in there, but it's not visible to most people. What has to happen is they have to get cleaned off, they have to get polished, and they have to be broken. The parts that are not ideal, the parts that are not preferred, those have to be broken off. They're chiseled off. They're cut, they're crushed, they're whatever. And so breaking is part of showing the world your brilliance. So the break that I experienced late Friday night was part of attaining my brilliance. And I could have said nothing about this. I could have acted like it didn't happen with you here because this is my channel. I can show whichever facet I want. But I want to be honest and I want to be, oh, as scary as it is, I want to be vulnerable. I want to be authentic. And so sharing the fact that I put so much time and effort into this project and I was so proud of it, and it didn't quite reach the mark compared to other people, compared to what one panel of 4 judges preferred on that day. Sure, I want to be able to say, "Oh, cool. Good for them. I'll keep trying." And that's true. In the moment, I did. I would love if my brain didn't set upon those things and find those gaps in the walls. But that break highlighted for me that I still have work to do. I still have polishing to do. After all, create brilliance, show the world your brilliance. This is a whole year-long project, right? We're only at the beginning of March. I've still got a lot of polishing and probably a lot of breaking to go. But that's okay because it's part of the process. It's part of revealing that brilliance. So I wanted to share that. I wanted to be completely honest about that. Um, it's not like I threw a tantrum. I didn't, 'cause, I even in the moment I was looking at it like, I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that anything was untoward or unfair. It wasn't about anyone else except it was about me. And it was about that self-worth and about recognizing my own brilliance. that just didn't happen in that moment. So like I said, it's a process. It's an ongoing challenge. And even I don't even know that I'll be fully there at the end of this year. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's a lifelong process. It just happens to be what I'm focusing on this year. And that's okay. That's okay. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing what I've been working on. Yes, I've been working on other things. I've been plotting for book 4. I've been working on the next coloring book. And I also have been like yesterday, Friday, or I'm sorry. Okay, so the opening was on Thursday. I have get my days mixed up. The opening was on Thursday. Friday was a rest and reset day for me. I played a video game on my Switch, and I read, and I watched cute programs on Disney Plus. You know, because that's what I needed that day. I just needed a rest day. Um, and now I'm back working. I had a major inspiration flash at 3 a.m. this morning about book 4. So reworking act 1 so that the rest will follow. Thankfully, I didn't have to throw out any written words. I just had to rework my outline a bit. So yeah, I've been working on other things in addition to the diorama project, in addition to Flaunt. Um, just like always. And yeah, so this is where we are. This is what it is. But I hope you enjoyed seeing not just the project, but some of the process of it. And I hoped, no, I hope what I've said about breaking and it being part of the process and revealing brilliance. I'm not trying to glamorize suffering by any means. Um, but I'm acknowledging that is a part of it, at least for me. Your mileage may vary. So that was a lot. And this is going a little bit longer than most of my videos have run for a while. But I hope you'll understand if you made it this far. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for checking in each week with me. Um, and if this is your first encounter with my weekly podcast, vlog, what have you, whatever you want to call it, welcome. I hope you'll come back. Um, you know, and whatever you do, however you do it, in the upcoming week, month, year, remember to show the world your brilliance. Most importantly, show yourself your brilliance. All right. Until next time.